This conference.
Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here in about a minute. There are still some that are signing on. Just a little housekeeping. If you could please mute yourselves. This is being recorded, so we don't want any background interference or people talking in the background. You may unmute at the end when you have a question. Again, we'll get started in less than a minute. Well, welcome everybody to our first 911 Services Board educational trainings. We plan to offer many more like this in the future, from things such as how to complete your PSAP survey all the way to cybersecurity within the PSAP. These are recorded and will be available on the 911 Services Board webpage. I am Mark Gaus, grant specialist, and today we're going to focus on grant writing, how to be a grant writer with no prior experience. Just a little bit about me. When I first started, I had only seen 2 grants in my entire life. And so, uh, being in this position, I have seen numerous grants come across my desk. I do read most of the ones that come in and review those. I've sat in on peer reviews. I have done trainings on my own, and I have gathered a little bit of information here to share with you. Um, I'm going to break it down into 3 simple steps with helpful tools for each area to help you write a successful grant. And so, as I said before, I had a lack of experience, and so grant writing was not something that I thought that I was qualified at. But hopefully, with these helpful hints, you can be a successful grant writer. All right, step number 1 is prepare and prioritize. You organize in order to set a vision, and a vision matters because it provides you something to look forward to work toward, and it cuts down on future issues. So, say that you're writing a grant for the latest technology that you saw out there, but there is equipment that needs to be updated or maybe nearing its end. Prioritizing helps you see what needs to come first. More importantly, it can establish a benchmark, a line of sight, a direction of where you want to be or where you should be as a PSAP center. Only then can you meet the immediate needs and dreams become reality. So, in short, preparing and prioritizing always makes your job easier. The first thing in preparing and prioritizing is getting others involved. Gather a team together. And you may even do this several times throughout the grant writing process. You may wish to have them be a part of the brainstorming, later on help you gather the information that's needed, and finally even help you write the grant itself. If you learned anything from elementary school, learn from the kickball court. Be selective and build your strong team, especially when it comes to project managing. If you are a project manager, know that most communications, most things rest upon you, the project manager, but it also helps to get other people involved as well, such as your authorizing official or your financial officer. Include them in on your team every step of the way, and allow others to participate too. They may have um, the ability or some knowledge to help you in this process. Do your research up front. Ask around. Find out what other PSAP centers have done. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and contact other centers, or call the 911 Services Board staff and ask what projects have been done in the past that are like the one you're going to do. And we can give you that PSAP or that PSAP's name, and you can reach out to them, ask them, get their input, ask about did you have any issues with the vendor? What did you like about this project? How has it helped your PSAP center? Um, Learn from their mistakes and their success stories as well. I also recommend going to conferences such as NINA, APCO, or KESC, even if it's once in a great while, um, to go to the vendor halls and see what technologies are out there. You may be able to find a dream for this grant or a grant that is your next one. And gather the basic information. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and the deep questions. Cut through the fluff. Ask things such as product features. How might this improve your services? Let them give you the sales pitch, and then you use that sales pitch. Uh, Ask them about cost, all cost, not just the equipment and the labor, but also any hidden costs, shipping, travel expenses, and so on. What is the installation time frame? Find out who has used their product before. And so you can get that kind of information from them as well. They may say, well, this other county used us within Kentucky, or maybe somebody in Tennessee or Ohio, and you can reach out to them and ask their opinion and get their insights. I want to warn you though, avoid allowing vendors to help you write your grant or your RFP. Do your own homework. And finally, review other written grants. Best way to do that is to be a part of our peer review team. And so we select those coming up here very soon. If you don't get on this time, you may get on the next. But that is seriously where I learned the most about, especially PSAP 911 grants. That is what I learned the most, was from actually reading previous grants, seeing what was a good grant and what was not a good grant. What did the peer reviewers like? What did they not like? Um, have an ongoing shopping list, kind of like the grocery list that you have on your fridge. You add to it, you delete from it. There are things that you need, there are things that you want. Um, what what are your basic needs? What equipment is about to reach its end of life? What needs to be upgraded, updated? What is your dream? And just a quick note, it's okay to dream big, but needs trump dreams. You also need to think to yourself, okay, well, if this is phase one of a three-phase project, I can't ask for phase two before I ask for phase one. And in order to in order to prioritize those needs, make sure that you read the guidelines first uh, to understand this PowerPoint slide will be part of what is saved on our webpage. So these that are underlined, you may click on those and find the information there, but make sure that you understand what is an allowable expense according to the KAR. Also, read the NG 911 roadmap and mapping guide to find out what our main priorities are. And look at the peer review scoring sheet. Um, those are on um, those are on our how-to slide, our grant workshop slide that is on our website. But read those guidelines. It helps to know what they're looking for or what is their primary priority before actually seeking a grant. So the roadmap. Components of this is it is a path to transition PSAPs from operating as individual silos to a regional network, statewide IP connected network. It meets the NG 911 mapping standards of NENA I3 with site structure, address points, geospatial call routing, text, videos, photo, and data. The GIS cornerstone is the next generation 911 transitions from the cell towers to geospatial call routing. NG 911 only works if all PSAPs have accurate mapping that is regularly updated. That is why we require a quarterly submission, a quarterly update of your mapping. GIS was a funding priority started in 2019 from our federal NG 911 grant that was awarded, and it will continue to be for future grant cycles. Let me repeat that. It will continue to be a priority for funding for future grant cycles. The mapping guide uh, is the expansion of required GIS data sets from PSAP boundaries and road center lines to also include emergency services boundaries such as law, fire, EMS, and site and structure address points. This mapping guide was created and crafted by your peers on the advisory council. It was adopted by the 911 Services Board, and it was set into regulation in September of 2019. And so these maps are uploaded directly into GeoComm's data hub. And the reason that I'm telling you these top three priorities is because this is what we're looking at. This is what we're looking for. How is this compatible to the NG 911 plan that we have? How is this a CMRS um, allowable expense? So this is what we are looking for, and as our primary focus, what I'm saying is it should be yours as well. So step two in this process is to strategize, to lay out your plan of action. Create a task schedule. This may include other people. It's a to-do list with deadlines. I uh, comments that need to be addressed, questions that need to be answered. I used Excel and created a 911 Services Board competitive grant checklist, task schedule with just some things that came off the top of my head. I did this in less than literally 5 minutes. Um, and so you can see that there's a place for the task. There is a place for who was assigned that task and the deadline date. You can color code these so that you know what is upcoming or what has been completed, or color coded according to name. This is what I'm doing. This is what somebody else is doing. Um, and check in on this on a regular basis. And this is the best way to keep an idea of what's going on, including important dates for the 911 Services Board, such as when does the grant portal open? When are we to attend our grant agreement or our grant workshop? Um, when should we release the RFP to the newspaper? Those types of things. Um, Build yourself a budget. We're talking about grant money, and so therefore it is imperative that money be involved and a budget be involved for that money. And break it down for yourself more than you do for the application. We ask for things like equipment, other, local match, total. Um, but dive deep into the budget. Find out where all the funds are coming from. Look at things such as equipment and labor, training, travel, shipping, maintenance fees, and remember that we, as the 911 Services Board, if a grant is awarded with a maintenance, we will only cover 1 year of that maintenance agreement. So what happens with the other 4 years? Where is that money coming from? Is that coming from from your CMRS funds? Are they coming from someplace else? And set that out so that we do not have any question whatsoever as to where this money is coming from. Know ahead of time if it is on state pricing contract, if you're going to do a sole source, or if this is an RFP required. When writing an RFP, cover all areas and be specific. In your advertisement, say what this is, the deadline, the reasons, any requirements that you have, who to contact, and how the selection process will be determined. Those are important, not only in trying to find your vendor, but also you will need to submit this in your RFP procurement process to us. Here's a helpful hint too. Ask the vendors to come in-house and show you how this will work with your current configuration and equipment. Show this product, uh, have them show you what these features can do. It helps too if people within your PSAP center will actually see this working and be able to work with it. Develop your first draft narrative. Begin to find all the missing pieces and begin to build your narrative that is required. The questions for the narrative of your application is the very thing that the peer reviewers are looking at, or those that are going to award this grant are looking for. This should be given time and focus. So many people just sit down and just start to write their grant. And I can guarantee you that is the best way to set up for failure or to not have a not so good grant. Just like in school, your English teacher was preparing you for such a time as this. Write a first draft, a second draft. Even on this presentation, this is draft number 5 for me. And I probably could do another couple drafts and still make some corrections and additions. The questions that are asked for your narrative, we give those to you. We kind of spoon feed those to you. But no matter what grant you're writing for, they are basically the same. Um, those certain specific questions should be answered at some point in your narrative. When it says to create to provide a brief summary, a summary is exactly what it means. It is a summary of your entire grant. Um, it gives us a basic idea of what it is that you're applying for, perhaps the reason why, along with some uh, progression, specific timing, specific timelines. But the other questions within that, within our narrative and within pretty much all other narratives, um, is how is this project consistent with what they're looking for? So for us, how is this project consistent with the NG 911 state plan? What is the specific inadequacy or gap in service? Explain, if any, regional impact. And how will this be sustained? And that doesn't only mean how is this going to be funded, but also how is this going to be managed properly? Who's going to manage the technical side of it? Who's going to manage the financial side of it? And so to explain how this is going to be maintained and sustained would be excellent to include. Does it contain adequate budget information with a reasonable and realistic cost projections? Why is this a financial need? What skin do you have in the fight, such as your local match, or where is years 2 through 5 of your maintenance agreement coming from? Have you had any previous grants within the past 3 years? Is this the next phase, or is this the first phase of a few? And how is this efficient in cost and delivery of services? I want to remind you that on our end, we have added a new thing this year to remember that no PSAP will be eligible to receive more than 5% of the available grant pool the first go around. If there's any unused funds after the first round, we will then go back in and consider funding beyond the 5% of the overall grant pool. Begin to gather your key attachments. Um, this is things such as your RFP or your vendor quotes, any specialty forms that you need. For instance, if you need a radio, that would require a quick form. If you're adding a seat, that would be the NINA form, and so on. Make sure that all of your documentation you have set and ready to go so that they can be signed, your proper procurement form. Um, uh, make sure that you gather up all of those key attachments. And the final step in this, step 3, is bringing it all together. This is a good time to bring your team back together again, to discuss and gather the documentation. You may have given somebody the responsibility of doing the RFP, and so you need to gather that information. I want to tell you that when writing your grant, your final grant request, it should be primarily data driven. And why, you might ask? Because you can't argue data. You can't argue numbers. It makes it easier to write your grant. It makes it a stronger case to build for your grant. It gives your grant credibility, and it establishes an urgency. Answer the narrative questions exactly. For instance, if we are asking for sustainability, how is this going to be sustained? Um, and only speak on that topic um, for that specific question. And if this is in a phase, especially if this is in a phase, but even if when it comes to your needs versus your wants and dreams, leverage your grants like dominoes. If then, um, if we receive this grant, then we can do this. Um, and be clear and concise, stating the information that needs to be stated, but also explaining the why. And be sure to proofread. Uh, I'm really bad at proofreading. Mike Sinceri can tell you that. I actually write the minutes for the board and the advisory council, and there are numerous times that I'll say something wrong or misspell something or have my grammar incorrect and it doesn't make sense. It's always good to have somebody else proofread it, especially somebody that is not in the know, or that has a clean set of eyes to look at it. Use persuasive writing. Now, I want you to hear me on this. I know I said earlier, make sure that it's primarily data driven, but you also are going to write your grant persuasively. And what is persuasive writing? Persuasive writing is used to emotionally move your reader. Don't just give the what, but explain the why. Now, for those of you that don't know much about me, I was a preacher for 22 years. So persuasive writing, I'm pretty good at. Um, it helps to be convinced, to convince yourself to the core that this project is needed. Um, you have to convince yourself before you can convince somebody else. So you need to ask yourself questions such as, why does this matter to my PSAP? Why does it matter to my community or to others in the region? What can happen if this project is developed? What could or would happen if this is not funded? And to explain that and to go into some sort of detail about that, along with your data to support that statement. If you remember when I talked about the vendors that allow them to give you their sales pitch and then use that sales pitch. When you go in to buy a car, they give you a sales pitch. They make you believe you absolutely need that vehicle today. You need to walk off that, well, you need to drive off that lot with that vehicle and why. And so in any grant writing, it helps to be persuasive, um, to give that sales pitch back to the reader. And one thing that I learned new in one of my trainings was the use of AI. This is not on my slides, but the use of AI in writing your narrative. I'm not big on AI, and but the other day, my daughter, who is in college, was having an issue writing a paper for uh, for one of her classes, and she called me to ask me for help, and I was helping her, and she said, here, let me go write this and I'll come back. Well, she came back in like less than 30 minutes and read to me this beautifully written paper. And I said, Lydia, how did you write that? I mean, that is phenomenal. Like, that's great. And she said, I used ChatGPT. I told my AI what I wanted to say and it said it. So there's a cheat for you. Use AI to write your narrative. It's better, it's faster, and it's way easier. Um, I went through that really quick. Do we have any questions? let me.
Hey, Mark, this is Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Uh, uh, RFPs. Explain RFPs on what they have to be used for and what they don't have to be used for.
Okay. Um, anything that is under, they just changed this, that anything that is under $40,000 does not need to be set out in an RFP. Um, but an RFP is, you have to go according to your own local procurement. Um, and so we do not monitor that. So it depends a lot on what your local agent or your local, uh, either your court or your city has, as far as what is required for an RFP. But normally an RFP is anything over $40,000 needs to go out into the advertising world, unless it is on state pricing contract or it is a sole source. What justifies a sole source is, for instance, if you're using AT&T and you are doing a refresh, um, you already have AT&T. This is just an update to the equipment that you already have, or the software that you already have. That is a sole source. Um, uh, if it is on state pricing contract, you need to make sure that that is actually on the state pricing contract, um, and will be for the current year that you're applying for. Um, as far as an RFP, what is required in that is, there's several things. You have to advertise. You have to select, um, how they are going to be selected. Uh, for instance, here's the criteria that they have to meet in order to be selected. Um, it could be a committee, or it could be the fiscal court or city council, or a group within your PSAP. But once you gather those quotes in from the different vendors, and you select which one that you have, all of that documentation needs to come to our office with your grant application. So that's on the actual procurement form. It'll say, um, if you check that box, this is what's required to come back to us. Did that answer your question, Larry?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Mike.
Good afternoon, everyone. Not a question, just one thing to add on to Mark's comment about state price contract. It has to be the exact product on the state price contract as what you're seeking in your grant.
Yes.
So if it's radio console model Z41 that you're wanting to get, but is Z42 that's on a state price contract, you can't use the state price contract for what you're searching for because it's not exactly the same product. So it's got to be complete apples to apples.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? If you do have questions later on, or need some assistance with your grant, we cannot write the grant for you, of course, but we can answer questions pertaining to your grant. Our contact information is listed there. Um, Especially contact me or Jason Childers, who is also with me as a grant specialist. Um, our goal, I actually say this all the time, our goal is to help you as much as we most possibly can. We are here for you. Your service is to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, to the people and their safety and their well-being. Our service is to you. And so, We have streamlined the grant process um, to the point of where it is much easier than any grant process that I have ever seen. And I just sat in on a training that was virtually from Alaska, and the grant application simply was basically 3 paragraphs on one sheet of paper, and they were writing a grant for $500,000. And the difficulty in trying to gather the information based on what it was they were saying that they needed. And we've made it very, very clear what we need and what we like to see. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can call the office number, which is 502-564-3911, and one of us will get back with you shortly. But other than that, if you have any other questions, you may put it in the chat. I'll keep this on for just about 2 minutes. You can email us, call us, whatever. But I thank you so much for your participation in this. Be looking for further educational training seminars that are coming. I know we have some coming up for 988. The collection of grant fees and the distribution of CMRS funds, cybersecurity. We have a lot coming up. So thank you all for joining us, and hope to speak with you all soon and see some awesome grants being presented this year.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.